Hello everyone and welcome to episode 44 of the Nurtured by Nature podcast. Today I'm delighted to be joined in conversation by Cynthia, author of the recently published book Summoned by the Earth, Becoming a Holy Vessel for Healing Our World. Reading her book and speaking with Cynthia, I have found a deeper connection and understanding of my own story and relationship with Gaia, which has moved me profoundly. Like many of us, Cynthia found herself witnessing the suffering of the earth, the environment and people, and within her soul felt the deep longing to help and the urgent question, what can I do? How can I bring healing to the earth? Her incredible book documents the unfolding of her journey and quest to be of service and answer her calling to offer healing to the world over the past 30 years. In this beautiful conversation, we explore some of the wisdom that Cynthia has gathered from her pilgrimage, that began with a meeting with a Tibetan Lama in the Himalayas and has traversed the earth, embracing and being welcomed by diverse cultures and in co-creation alongside many treasured Indigenous elders who have generously shared their own wisdom and traditions. She shares the stories of some of the earth treasure vases, from being joined by the whales in Mexico whilst offering healing after a hurricane, to Mali and Liberia, where people were finding their way to healing their collective trauma after a difficult civil war, and the incredible experience connecting to the Nilotic Meridian in South Africa and Egypt. We dive into the often underestimated power of intention and our need to act from a place of love, how we must learn to step outside the paradigm that has created the world we currently witness and have the courage to lean into the radical act to stop, set down the fear and urgency and hold the space between our thoughts where we can drop into our true nature of deep caring, love and connection, setting aside our ideas of what should be and allowing the space for the powerful co-creation of what will be to rise, free of our expectation and attachment. Sacred activism is the radical act that may just be the key to open the door within us that we have all been searching for. The earth is calling us all, and we all have our roles to play. So make sure you stay to the end of this incredible episode so that you can join Cynthia and I in meditation and pour your own loving intention for healing into the Gaia Mandala that connects all of us and the earth treasure vases and help become a healing force for good in our world. Welcome, Cynthia, and thank you so much for joining us today on this episode of the Nurtured by Nature podcast. I'm very much looking forward to talking to you today about your entire journey and your recently released book. But just to get us started, I invite all my guests to share a little bit about their nature story. So that can be anything that comes to mind. I think your whole story is your nature story. So you might have a little challenge to pick us a little segment to get us started.
Thank you so much for having me, Fiona. It's wonderful to be here with you and have the chance to talk together. You're right. I have countless nature stories because my life has been really dedicated to forming a relationship with Mother Earth, with Gaia, and it's unfolded over the course of my lifetime. So anyway, I'm sure we'll get into some of that, but gosh, there's just a lot of directions I could go. I guess there's one really wonderful one, which we'll touch on in a different way maybe later, but I was in Mexico after a hurricane that really devastated the coast of southern Mexico in the state of Oaxaca on the Pacific coast. And we were there with this global healing project that I have started and have been carrying out for many years. And we were looking for a place to plant one of these earth treasure vases that is the practice that I carry, and walked out to this point of land that's sticking out into the Pacific Ocean. Yeah. We were looking for a beautiful spot to plant one of these little holy vessels. and we couldn't find anything. It had just been completely flattened and blown away, and it was
Yeah.
all rock. And we got all the way out to a very, the utmost point of land that was just basically disappearing into the ocean. And we had to stop because there was no further to go. And I pulled out my bell, which I ring before a meditation all the time. And I pulled out this little clay pot that comes from the Tibetan tradition that is an earth treasure vase. And I held it up, and I was with a few friends who were from there, and held it up and just, we opened our hearts and just asked, what can we do? Where can this go? And in that moment, I rang the bell, held up the pot, and a whale breached right off the point.
Oh, beautiful.
Just like boom. And
Yeah.
then the spray came onto us and onto this pot, and another whale breached right beyond it. And we were just stunned, our mouths dropped down, and we were so amazed. And in that moment, I had this image of a place we had walked through before
Okay.
coming all the way down onto the
Yeah.
rock. And so I had a feeling like, okay, it's there. It had to be there.
Yeah.
And I turned around, we all turned around and walked back. When I got up to the place where I could see the land again, I saw this path that was like made from light. It
Oh,
was
wow.
just a shining path, and it
Yeah.
led to the base of an huge old saguaro cactus
Oh,
that
wow.
was standing very tall. It was like the only one remaining after this
Oh,
hurricane. And at the base of that big cactus, we saw the path going, and I got up onto it and I walked over, and we thought this was going to be the hard as rock soil, because it was this rocky
yeah.
promontory. And we started to dig into the ground to place this offering. And the ground just opened up like butter. It
Like it
was
was
just
meant to
like,
be.
oh, yes. And so that was an amazing story. When I went back about 5 years later, I visited this location again with my husband, and we sat down. It was getting to be sunset, and we thought, well, we'll just do a little meditation. And we sat down and rang the bell again,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden, all these people started coming quietly, silently,
Yeah.
walking very beautifully to the edge where they could look out. We could all look out and see the sunset.
Yeah.
And everybody just settled down for a meditation at
Oh, wow.
sunset, all on their own, and had no idea that in that very spot was one of these holy vessels that had been placed there to bring healing and protection and renewal to the whole area. And, it just was a remarkable experience, because it felt like the spirit that had been planted in that ground was really radiating out and inviting others to come
Yeah.
into an experience there that could only be beneficial.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. What a beautiful way to start. It's just lovely. I've got goosebumps all over me just listening to that. And I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? It's like, historically in our cultures, more sort of native cultures, I think we would have had these sacred areas, wouldn't they? And they would have been imbued with these prayers, with these sort of energies of coming together. And I guess that's part of what you've created as well is kind of new sacred sites, really, aren't they? They're like, what we would have done historically as cultures come together, and you're creating them now. And it's amazing. And I mean, we have these sacred sites that we're drawn to, that we know about. I mean, in the UK, obviously we've got ones like Stonehenge is probably very familiar with people, but there are all around the world these sacred places which are imbued with this energy that you just feel drawn to, don't you? You can feel it. It's just magical when you experience it.
Mhm.
But I think we probably need to go back and explain to people what your amazing journey has been, and your lovely book, which has just recently been released. I absolutely consumed it when I got it. It was just, I couldn't put it down, and I would highly recommend it to everyone. And it's called Summoned by the Earth: Becoming a Holy Vessel for Healing Our World. And it's a lovely story about your journey, isn't it? Basically over the last 30 odd years. And I think it starts with something that, well, I know I resonate with, and I think a lot of people resonate with, and that's just this feeling of, we do feel the burden of the pain that the earth and nature and Mother Earth are suffering. And we feel like, what can we do and how can we help? And that was your question, wasn't it? That you started you on this first path.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if we're at all open to what's happening in the world and on the planet, we're worried
Yeah,
about how things are going to go because we've lost touch with the balance
yeah,
within the web of life, and it's gotten so out of balance in so many ways, and we're seeing that in so many manifestations. And so, yeah, I just want to say, in terms of sacred places and making a place a sacred place, when the indigenous cultures that have been around for so long were in charge of maintaining that balance, they would make offerings
yeah,
to the earth and to the creatures and to the trees and the waters and all of that. And that relationship was honored as a reciprocal relationship that required care,
yeah,
and not just taking advantage, not
yeah.
just taking.
Yeah, the exploitation of everyone and everything,
Yeah,
both people and animals and nature, because we are exploiting both. It's not it's not an either or. While some people might come into this sort of worried about people being exploited, others come in because they're worried about Mother Nature, but actually the two are interlinked and interwoven.
yeah,
Um,
it's all
yeah,
connected, as everything is in
yeah,
this beautiful planet we live on. But yeah, I've always had this feeling of connection and caring for the earth and how beautiful this planet is. And um, I have been, devastated to see
yeah,
the kinds of things that are happening and feeling so powerless about
yeah.
what to do and how to engage and what's my role, and it's so overwhelming and all of that. So what happened for me was that I was invited to go and meet an old lama from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition who lived in a cave in Nepal and was the teacher of someone that I met. And I was invited to go up into the Himalayas and meet this, literally the proverbial old wise man in the cave, right? And I was compelled to go. I felt like I had to do
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
And but it wasn't until I was walking up the trail, you know, up in these high altitudes,
yeah,
walking way up into the mountains, where I realized I had the opportunity to ask a question
yeah,
of the old wise man in the cave, and I really had no idea what to do, but I felt into this deep question that I've always carried, but I was kind of under the surface at that time.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
30 plus years ago. And then it arose, the question being, what can we do to bring healing and protection to the earth?
yeah,
And I thought, what would he say
yeah,
that we should do,
yeah,
from his perspective? And so that was my guiding question, and it still is my guiding question. And I had the chance to live with him for a few weeks, and then eventually to meet with him. And I was really concerned about the fact that here in New Mexico I live very close to where the first and second atomic bombs were created, and is
Okay.
still a laboratory
Yeah.
producing nuclear weapons, and the radioactive waste that comes off of those weapons, and that production is something that is damaging the DNA and the web of life for hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah.
It's affecting everything, and people just want to put it underground and out
Yeah.
of sight
Out of
and out of
sight, isn't
mind and
it? Out
forget
of
about
sight.
it,
And then, yeah.
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 And so I was concerned about that, and I was concerned about all of the droughts and the fires and the things that were starting to happen all around the world, and the pollution and everything else.
Yeah.
So in any case, he told me that I should get what they call earth treasure vases, which come from the Tibetan tradition. It's an ancient practice to fill these little clay pots
Yeah.
with prayers and offerings that are symbolic of healing and protection for the earth, and to plant them in places that need that,
Yeah.
and my sort of cynical, rational mind was filled with doubt, like, how's a little clay pot,
Yeah.
filled with symbolic offerings going
Yeah.
to affect the kinds of things that we need in the world today. But it was an incredible assignment, and I had to accept the fact that this is what was coming to me. And I
Yeah.
had been asking for what was mine to do. And here it is, okay, where can I get some? Let's see, because of
Yeah.
course the task is so overwhelming. We have to try everything we can, and we have to try and address it from all kinds of points of view. And, I'm somewhat of an activist, but I just felt like this was what was mine to do.
Yeah.
And so it's taken me all around the planet. And I've managed to go into cultures and communities on almost every continent, or others who are now stewarding these
Yeah.
earth treasure vases with me have also helped. And we now have what I refer to as a global healing mandala of locations all around the planet where, when we're done, right now it will be maybe 93,
Oh,
but
wow.
maybe we'll make more, and it could be over 100 of these locations will be seeded with our prayers and intentions of healing and protection and renewal for the earth. And it's been just amazing to see what has come from carrying out this practice. And some of the outcomes have been very tangible, and some have been more subtle, but
Yeah. I think
nevertheless.
I think that was something that I really drew from your book was, I mean, you're incredibly humble, which is one aspect of it, but it's this you had trying to think of the word, like no attachment to what they could possibly do. And I think that had this beautiful open space in that every sort of different culture and place that you took it, they would just weave their magic in. And I say magic because I think our language is lacking really a lot of words to describe these energies and frequencies and the sort of sacred nature of the level that you're dealing with. But there were so many different impacts in different places, and I think if you had gone in with that sort of human mindset of, right, we're this problem in this place and we're going to do this to solve it, and actually it was, there were surprising things, weren't there? I mean, I loved your, I mean, I've got quite a connection to Africa, but I loved your story of is it in Liberia and the peace huts that came forward, and your lovely relationship there with Christian, the ex-rebel. And it's just something that you wouldn't have thought of necessarily sort of from the outside, isn't it? And but actually taking the treasure vase and that vessel that gave you to connect with the communities, to connect with the people, has just created this incredible movement for good there, which is just, yeah,
Mhm.
amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it is amazing. And, it's funny because in the beginning, I was approaching the whole thing much more rationally and
Yeah.
linearly and thinking, okay, well, where do we go and how do we get there? And we got to be sure to go here, here, and here. And, then I would try to make it happen. And whenever I would try to make it happen, it would be like, not so good,
Yeah.
not so easy, actually, making it much harder
Yeah.
to do this. And I also realized that, while this is a practice that comes from the Tibetan tradition, that's not necessarily going to go over so well in the
Yeah.
Native American tradition or the Africa or, these other cultures where
Yeah.
they have very different ways of operating. And so I didn't want at all to go into any of these parts of the world and to assume that I had something that they would want,
Yeah.
or that would mean something to them. And really, it's like, this is an offering. We recognize the suffering that you are going through, and we're with you,
Yeah.
and just like, if this means anything to you, we offer it, but
Yeah.
we're not going to tell you what you need. And so the process evolved to one of doing, to one of being,
Yeah.
and to realizing that um, when sort of I got out of the way and set aside my big ideas of what
Yeah.
should be happening here, and trying to figure it out with my rational mind or
Yeah.
my conceptual mind, but really opened to something so much larger than myself, then things could really happen.
Yeah.
And what could happen was in harmony with nature,
Yeah.
with the miraculous way in which things unfold, in spite of ourselves.
Yeah.
And I feel like, for the kinds of change and reorientation that is called for in the world today, that this is part of the key, is
Yeah.
to set aside our big ideas and open to another way of operating
Yeah.
that is connected to the web of life, and to Mother Nature, to Gaia, to each other, to the animals and the plants
Yeah.
and all the rest of it. So anyway, that is what really made all the difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
It still
I
does.
think I think that's something that I've been picking up more and more from many of the people I've spoken to is just this we feel like I think partly it's from like education, like we feel like we have to have the answer, and it's quite uncomfortable to sort of ask a question that you don't know the answer to. And I think, but actually, that's where this beautiful space of like co-creation comes in, and it's intention as well, which is obviously what the whole Earth Treasure Vases project is about pouring your intentions for healing and bringing together these beautiful communities, both sort of overarching and also in the locality where the vases are going to be placed, and just
Mhm.
pouring your intention for love and healing and community and co-creation into that is just, like you said,
It's
it's the key, isn't it? It's
it
realizing that
is.
we don't have to have the answer, but we have to be able to hold the space where we can receive the answer, or at least receive the next step. I think possibly is, this that we're still in the sort of path in the fog, aren't we? But we just have to find that next step to take.
Yes, yes, and the having a little holy vessel, as I call them, a little clay pot, we open it up and we invite people to put their prayers, their intentions, their offerings into it. And it's been amazing to see that wherever we go all around the world, people can relate to that.
Yeah,
It's like no matter what culture or spiritual tradition or anything at all, like everywhere, people have concern for their
yeah,
land, for their communities, for their families, for the animals, for the trees, the waters, whatever it is. And this gives people a chance, a way to pour their love, as you say, into a little receptacle that then holds that love and that connection and that feeling of wanting to make things right, you know, to bring balance and harmony and peace, you know, and healing. And so it gives everyone a chance to connect with what they love and care about most, really. And then, you know, they put that into the vase or vase, and then we see what happens. But one of the things that does happen is that that very person who put that offering in is now in touch with something so important in themselves. And that becomes the catalyst, you know, for them to then realize, oh, maybe this is my calling, you know, this is my offering, what I can do. And we're all needed, because the job is, you know,
it's huge.
It's huge. We're all in this together. So it becomes a way in which we can each engage in our own way, whatever that is, in our own little neck of the woods, you know.
And I think that's what's beautiful about your story and all the people that you've met, is people have found different ways of engaging. The outcomes have been different in different places, and it's it's just open, isn't it? It's like, you know, and it does need everyone. And I think, I mean, that's part of my thing with my podcast, is I want people to feel empowered. I want people to feel like, even if it feels small and insubstantial, it's not, it really isn't. Like, it needs all of us to do our little things that we tell ourselves are small and insubstantial. And actually we all come together, and this collective gathering of energy and intention is what's going to help lead us to where we want to go, and the world we want to see, where people can thrive and are valued, and where nature can thrive and is valued. And it's just, I just love it. I really love everything about your book. It's just it's just been fantastic to read it. But one of the things you do talk a lot about, which people might not have heard of, is the term of sacred activism. And I think I don't know if you'd like to talk a little bit about what that means to you, because I feel quite drawn to that myself, and I think it's quite a nice approach to activism that's less sort of the confrontational thing that most people are kind of assign when they think of activism.
No, it's for me, it feels like the way to begin to make change is to start with our intention, you know, to start with our hopes and dreams and prayers and wishes that we can literally radiate out into the world, and not to underestimate the power of that. That especially when we come together collectively with a shared intention, there's a power in that, and it sends out an energy into the world that actually has substance. And out of that, like I was saying, when people pour their hearts into the little clay pots, they also get in touch with what in many cases is theirs to do. But, you know, we're so caught up in the activity and the busyness of our lives, and in all the, you know, everything coming at us all the time. You know, it's really important to stop, take a breath, you know, return to just something very, very simple that is unconditioned by all that stuff and what we think we should do, or we're told we should do, or, you know, this constant activity that is actually only contributing to making things worse. And when we can stop long enough to drop into that deep caring and that place of love and kindness and connection, then we can start to see things in a little bit different way. And I think what has, the way in which, or the trajectory that we've been on, it has pretty much reached its end, and
Yeah.
it's not very effective anymore. We're not getting anywhere. We're just beating ourselves against the wall. So we have to find some other approaches. And when we can see things more clearly by coming back to that place of literally, resting in the arms of Gaia, or opening to awareness, that is in between the thoughts, that is where this something larger than ourselves, resides. When we drop into that, then everything starts to kind of rearrange itself. And when we act from that place, instead of the old habitual, striving and doing, when we act from that other place, then our actions are really connected to something that is, I was going to say, so much larger than ourselves, but is not contributing to the same old story. It's a creative response to something we can trust in ourselves that is going to help and not contribute to more problems. So that's, for me, the first step in sacred activism, is to take a breath, take the time out to find that place within without trying to figure it out, and then to stabilize ourselves in that, and then to act from there, to act from what we love, what we're called to, what we care about, not because of some, external pressure.
Yeah. I think it's I don't know, it's almost this sort of juxtaposition that we're in, isn't it? That we feel like there isn't time, like we've that our society has got so busy, and we've sort of become in this perpetual cycle of production, and we have to be on the go and hustling, and the only way you succeed is to hustle, and we feel this pressure, there's this fear, and about the climate crisis, and we're almost too late, and like we haven't got, so we don't feel that we have time, and it's sort of just, again, that the mentality that's brought us there is the mentality that's created the problems. And it's trying to, realize that, not to say that we don't need to take action, but there is the time to just say, actually, I need to step out of that mindset. I need to step out of that conditioning, I guess, that we have become accustomed to, and take that breath and sit in that space and come back to, I guess it's the rhythm of nature, isn't it? The connection to Gaia, to her, her time scales. And I always think, there we have our time, our 24 hours a day, but actually, like, there's all of these time scales around us, that all the animals and the trees are operating on like completely different time scales to what we consider a time scale. And it's just, it's having courage, I suppose, isn't it? Really, I think that's what it is to say, okay, there's a lot of fear, and that makes it really hard, but actually we just need to have the courage to stop and realize that we can't hustle our way out of this. We've got to find a different answer. And I love your approach, because your intention is one of love, and I think that's something that's really important, and it is important for activism, because sometimes with activism we do operate from that place of trauma and fear, and we are stuck in that fight, and we're not coming from that place of love, and then what we're putting out, our energy is more of the sort of hate and anger and things, which has its place, like we all will feel that, we feel the pain and suffering, but actually to give ourselves the time to process that, and to find ways to look for positive things to focus on, and to contribute to, is so important.
It's so true. I mean, I'm thinking of a couple of things here. Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a Zen master from Vietnam, who was my great teacher, he used to say that it's a radical act to stop. And he was a very big proponent of what he calls engaged Buddhism, which is a lot like sacred activism. And so he was an activist, but he
Yeah.
was coming at it from this place. And it really is a radical act to stop because we're so conditioned to just keep going all the time. But as we do that, we lose ourselves completely.
Yeah.
So it's important to take time to stop and to really reflect. And we've gotten so far away from ourselves that we don't even know what's ours to do, you know?
Yeah.
And we're just on this treadmill. So I had an experience in Africa. The first time I went to Africa, I was taking one of the Earth Treasure vases to Liberia. I think you mentioned it a minute ago. And I had had a dream that, because I was kind of nervous about going to Africa, I didn't know how the treasure vase practice would be received and,
Yeah.
you know, all of that. And I had this dream that I went to see the Dogon people in Mali,
Yeah.
and that I was, how can I say this? I realized that the pathway to peace in Liberia and in Africa in general was through the Dogon. I had to go see them, and so I did. I actually managed to go and go to Mali,
Oh,
and this
wow.
was some time back, and meet this incredible Dogon elder who gave a blessing to the treasure vase that I then carried to Liberia. And he was a diviner. He asked me if I would like for him to make a divination, and I said yes. And I asked, you know, how will this whole Earth Treasure Vase practice be accomplished? You know, I was so
Yeah.
overwhelmed and
Yeah.
everything. And he did this divination, and I write about this in the book. And his answer was that everything would unfold, you know, like this was a good thing, and that I didn't need to worry, that it would happen in its own way, in its own time, as you
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
pointed to. And he said, then I said, well, what about this sense of urgency that I feel? Like I'm worried
Yeah.
that things are really coming
They've gone too
apart.
far. Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
gone too far.
Yeah.
And he paused for the longest time. And then he looked at me and he said, urgency. We don't really have that here. I mean, he comes out of this very traditional culture. I mean, he just lives on, he is the earth, you know.
Yeah.
And he was puzzled by
Yeah.
this quality of this way of living that
Yeah.
is governed by this sense of urgency.
Yeah.
And he said, we don't really have that here. And in that moment, I realized that the sense of urgency that I feel that was at the time governing how I was acting is not helping one bit.
No.
That it just keeps me or us into that incessant cycle
Yeah.
that doesn't allow for something else to happen. And it allowed me in that moment to just drop that and to just
Yeah.
rest in this experience of being with him and with all that is, with
Yeah.
all that is, and to approach it from a very different place. And so that has been a real governing, you know, guiding teaching that I received from him. And then when you spend time with elders around the world in any culture, you know, you see that they are not rushing.
No.
Thich Nhat Hanh he moved at a snail's pace with his
Yeah.
walking meditation. And it was walking with the breath, making contact with the earth under his feet, and being present.
Yeah. I was going to
Being
say
present.
consciousness. That was the word that came to me, was just this. Yeah.
Consciously,
Yeah.
mindfully,
Yeah.
in the moment, not rushing ahead or worried about the past or the future, but
Yeah.
just being here. And then we can respond so much better. I also thought about, as you were talking, I made a film once about some indigenous grandmothers, and they met the Dalai Lama, and so did I. And he said at one point, he said, prayer is not enough. We have to work.
Yeah.
And so, you know, this is part of this whole thing of sacred activism. It's like bringing together the intentions that we have, the prayers that we have, call it what you will, you know, but it's not enough to just sit on our cushion.
Yeah.
We have to engage
Yeah.
those intentions and prayers in a way that is skillful and will contribute
Yeah.
to a better world for all beings, you
Yeah.
know, and that's the assignment.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's I mean, it's there in the word, isn't it? Activism. It's, there's the act. You've got to do it. And I think that's the thing. I had a guest a while ago and we were talking about active hope. And that was, the similar idea of yes, you need to have hope, but then you need to do something with it as well. You need to get out there and follow your intuition, the things you're guided to, your calling, whatever that may be. And then together we're all laying our little sort of steps and stones to to move towards the sort of nicer, better vision for the earth. But yeah, it is the beautiful marriage of the two, isn't it? Of
Mhm.
having and holding this space of intention, co-creation with each other and the earth, and then acting
Mhm.
on the guidance that we're given of
Yeah,
what needs
yeah,
doing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to go to South Africa because I know you spent
Yeah.
time there. And it was one of the locations that we visited with this practice. And so if it's okay, I'll
Yeah,
tell you
no, I'd love
a
it.
little
It
bit
was
about it.
I couldn't believe it when I was reading your book because I spent 5 years in South Africa, just outside well, within the Greater Kruger National Park, and we were on the northern fringes of the Drakensberg mountain range and an area called the Blyde River Canyon. And it was after I left, but that is where one of the Earth treasure vases now resides and made its home. And it was just I just yeah, it was this beautiful connection. And I was like, oh, that was somewhere that like my soul really found a
Mhm.
home and it will always be part of my heart. And
Yeah,
to know that
yeah,
one of the vases is sitting there, I've just felt this huge connection to that. So I'd love to hear
yeah.
more about that vase in
Well,
particular.
thank you. Yeah, it's my husband is a veterinarian,
Oh wow.
and he did a lot of work. He had a kind of international organization doing work with endangered species, and he was doing a lot of work in Kruger actually, and working with elephants and um, other smaller reserves in that area. And so we were there quite a bit and formed, you know, these incredible relationships
Yeah.
with the communities there, but also with the animals, and just felt as if one of the treasure vases really needed to go into that part of the world. And so a lot of things happened when we organized the pilgrimage, which I consider every time we take one of these somewhere, it's really a pilgrimage because we're
Yeah.
holding this intention, this prayer, this very strong, um, yeah, I don't know what I'm losing my words. This strong intention
Yeah.
for bringing the healing to a certain area, and everyone who's on the trip, if it is a group, is also there, and we're kind of practicing walking in the way that Thich Nhat Hanh would walk, and making contact with the earth and with all beings. So, in any case, we went to a number of places, and in starting in Johannesburg, visiting. The Apartheid Museum
Yeah.
and Nelson Mandela's home, and um, you know, bringing in that part of the history of that part of the world,
Yeah.
And then we actually went out into the Kalahari and
Yeah.
made connection with some of the San people
Oh,
and
wow. Yeah.
invited them into this prayer and invited their prayers into the vase, which was so profound. These beautiful, this, the hanging on for dear life to their culture.
Yeah.
Such an ancient and important um, community of people on planet Earth still that we can learn so much from. And so we were really blessed to be able to connect with them and have invite them in. And then we went up into Kruger and into another reserve. Makalali is there, and Hugh, my husband, was doing this work with elephants in both locations, and um, all the elephants started to come around, when we were out and we were
Yeah.
opening the vase to, receive their blessing and their, you know, prayers, I
Wisdom.
guess,
Yeah. Yes.
you know.
Wisdom and guidance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, their wisdom, exactly. And
Yeah.
the sound and the stepping on the ground of the elephants as they move, it just feels like such an important stabilization
Yeah.
of energy into the earth.
Yeah.
Um, they have such an important role to play, as do all beings, right? And the little the babies, the mamas would bring their babies. It was so incredible because they
Yeah.
feel the energy of what we're holding. And then we also went to visit a reserve that is connected to the protection of the white lions, which a woman by the name of Linda Tucker has started and really taken up the task of bringing protection. This is in the area of Timbavati, which is
Yeah.
also right in that same region. These beautiful white lions that are prophesized, like the white eagles, the white buffalo. There's many culture. The white
Yeah.
bear, the white lions are another one, and then those beautiful creatures, so regal and magnificent. And they came around, and we did a ceremony with the treasure vase, and they were all around the protected corral, where we were
Yeah.
sitting inside, and they were on the outside. But every time the vase would be passed for someone else to put their prayers and offerings, the lions would roar
Oh,
into
wow.
the vase, and so that was really amazing. And I don't know, just all these things happened, and so magical, so
Yeah.
um it's like everything starts to conspire and come together, and all of it goes into the vase. And
Yeah.
then we went into the Blythe River Canyon, which you are familiar with, this beautiful place. And it's, yeah, I'm not going to tell you every little detail, but we managed to bury the treasure vase up above the rim there. And there's an elder from the Zulu nation called Credo Mutwa, who only passed away just fairly recently. I can't remember exactly how long ago, but he had identified this one rock formation as a stone altar that goes
Oh,
back 30,000 years.
oh,
And
wow.
so we did our final ceremony there. And when we placed the vase into the ground, um, we actually felt like it entered, they talk about this nilotic meridian that runs the whole length of the African continent, from the Giza Plateau, where the Nile begins,
Yeah.
all the way down into South Africa. And when we placed that, I just have goosebumps telling you this. When we placed the treasure vase into the ground in South Africa, we literally felt the energy move up the entire Nilotic meridian. It was an amazing moment.
Yeah.
And we all felt it, and we're not necessarily, woo woo people. And this was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And so there was someone with us who was planning to go to Egypt later on that year. and they took another treasure vase to Egypt and managed to bury it near the pyramids.
Oh, wow.
And so
So you've
speaking
got
of,
either end of it, basically.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
speaking of the sacred places, so these offerings were made on both ends of the Nilotic Meridian, and the one in Egypt was placed there. I'm not kidding you. It was placed there just before Arab Spring.
Wow.
And it went into the ground, and it was just shortly after that that whole thing came about, where everyone just went out and started demonstrating. And of course, there was a crackdown after that, and it didn't um, go where we might have hoped it would go, that movement. But the movement itself was such a powerful uprising, and so who's to say what comes from all these prayers and intentions and offerings into the earth, but you feel like it is contributing to an awakening, a
Yeah.
collective awakening that is what is needed in the world to make the changes that we need to come together,
Yeah.
and we can't necessarily attribute it to the treasure vase, but we can recognize how things operate. In Liberia, when I went to Liberia, I ended up meeting these uh, former combatants, who
Yeah.
had been part of
From the
the
rebel soldiers and yeah.
rebel soldiers who had been part of the war, who were desperate to heal the trauma, as were all the people in Liberia who were coming out of the Civil War, and who asked me to teach them to meditate, which I thought was, rather surprising.
Yeah.
And then when we buried the treasure vase there, the people, including the elders, said, "Well, we need to remember these prayers. This was important. And what can we do?" And it's like not for me to tell them, but for them to decide. They decided to build peace huts in the area where the vase
Yeah.
was planted, and then all around where conflict was still an issue, as a place where people could come together to heal and transform and wake up and support each other in stabilizing peace in that land. So anyway,
Yeah.
I know there's so much more to share, but
Oh no, it's beautiful. I love that. I think there's two things like that I felt there was like when you were talking about the Arab Spring, and it's like, I mean, we were talking about our own struggles with the resistance within ourselves of like stepping
yeah,
outside of this
yeah.
time frame and, not feeling hectic and rushed. And there will be resistance, there is resistance to change. We don't like change, and sometimes, things won't unfold fully. They'll just be, it will be the seed and the first step. And, I think sometimes we can feel disheartened and frustrated when it doesn't, go the full way, does it? But actually, it was an important first step, and it has, opened a door. And sometimes that's more powerful than I think we realize and give it credit to. But I think something else that I would like to just touch on, that you do talk a lot about, is actually healing our relationship and um finding a way to be honoring more the indigenous wisdom and the
Mhm,
indigenous peoples, and also women as well. I think that has become quite a strong part of your journey as well, hasn't it? Is the feminine and the I guess empowering women and allowing their voices to become the important voices that they are in helping to heal the world.
yeah. No, it's true, because many of the spiritual traditions that I've been part of, and we see all around the world, are very, very hierarchical and patriarchal. And it's not
Yeah.
just in the spiritual traditions, but it's also in politics, and it's, sort of in every aspect of our lives. And I'm pretty tired of that myself. I don't know about you, but
Yeah.
it's like, come on, is this really working?
Yeah.
I don't think so. And I think, this is a place, this is one of my places anyway of sharing my voice and standing up and going, enough is enough, really. And it was a prayer. It was a motivation
Yeah.
to reckon with the abuse of women. I think the abuse of women is very connected, in fact, intimately connected with the abuse of the earth.
Yeah.
And you can't, stop one without the other, right? And women are the bearers of life. We birth life into this world. And so we understand innately, intuitively, we understand um, how nature operates in our bodies,
Yeah.
you know. And so this is a way in which we are so intimately connected to the life force of Mother Nature and Mother Earth and all of that. And so it's sort of natural to want to empower women and bring out and support the leadership of women, because I think that we've, as I say, we've just gone down, far enough in
Yeah.
this old way. It's an old paradigm. It's an old story. It's so that's part of the healing for sure. And it is a big part of the book. I write a lot about that in the book, and from the perspective of my own life, but also from the perspective of the collective experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it is so important to start to give voice to these marginalized groups, really. I suppose that's the best way to describe them, is these groups that have been, pushed to the edges, have been just literally, just their voices haven't been heard. They haven't been listened to. They haven't been valued for all of this time. And like we said right at the beginning, like it needs all of us. And this is part of this big, bringing things back into balance. Is we got, the women and the native cultures, all the wisdom that these elders carry, and they have managed almost miraculously to hold on to for all of this time. and
Yeah,
and they have this wealth of knowledge and wisdom that we need to start valuing, listening to, and hearing, and having them join us in this co-creation, because their their wisdom is just invaluable, really, isn't it? There's
it
no
is.
there's no other word for it.
It is. It is. And that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And we all have that wisdom, underneath the surface of, whatever is sort of come in and covered it all up. We each have um, a storehouse of wisdom and compassion that
Yeah.
is our true nature.
Yeah.
And so peeling back those layers, and it helps so much to just go put your toes in the stream or lean your back up against a tree and or smell the flowers,
Yeah.
and
And
listen to the
remember.
sound
Yeah.
of the earth. And remember,
Yeah.
this is my nature too.
Yeah.
And get off our devices, get into what the kind of way of living that these indigenous elders have not lost,
Yeah.
to reclaim that for ourselves, for all life, for the sake of all life.
Yeah.
Not that the indigenous traditions have all the answers, because it's going to take all of us.
Yeah. I will include for everyone like the links to your websites and ways to connect with you and get in touch. I know one of the things that your community do that perhaps people might feel called to be involved with is you do a meditation on the full moon every month, don't you? Where people can bring their intentions and sort of feed into the beautiful Earth Treasure Vase project and help to heal the earth. I don't know if you'd like to share a little bit about that. And we did possibly look at maybe we could just do a quick little short meditation if we have if you feel called that the the listeners could pour their intention into this with us as well.
Well, yes, we do a meditation every full moon, and it's been going on for over 30 years, which is just amazing to think about. But um, when I picked up this practice, I was able to sort of evolve a meditation visualization practice that is kind of inspired by the Tibetan tradition, but is very non-denominational and more secular, that would invite people into a relationship with the earth, but also with the suffering that's going on in the world, and then sending our love
Yeah.
to relieve that suffering. And it's actually a really uplifting practice that we do. And then people now, because it's on Zoom, people come from all over the world, and we kind of go back and forth between it being morning or evening in the US so that we can include all the time zones. And we also focus on whatever the Earth Treasure Vase is that we're working with at that particular time. So this coming full moon, which is just around the corner, we're going to be kind of honoring a vase that was just recently buried in British Columbia in Canada.
Oh.
And then also putting our prayers in intentions into a vase that will be soon buried on behalf of the whales. So,
Oh, so
speaking
we've
of
come full
elephants,
circle.
like,
They started our podcast and here they are coming back.
yeah, so it's beautiful. And so I invite you all to join us for that. You can sign up for that on the website GaiaMandala.net. So, and there's other things you can learn about there too. But I could take us into a short meditation here.
Yeah, I
Shall we?
think I think that'd be a lovely way to finish up and just have anyone that's listening both now and in the future that they've taken the time to listen, they've heard the wonderful things that you've been doing in your journey, and to give them the opportunity at this moment to pour their own love and intention and love for Mother Earth and hopes for the future into the collective, and then obviously hopefully go on and join you on a monthly basis and contribute more. But yeah, it would be lovely if you would be able to just lead us in a meditation.
Let's do that. I like to start with the sound of the bell, just
Yeah.
because it'll shift from the one kind of talking to another. And so I'm just going to bring this over a little closer. Invite you to just, we were talking about stopping. So let's do that. Let's just take a breath and stop. And with the sound of the bell, just come back to our own true nature. And with each deepen into that, and I'll guide you through a little meditation. Breathing in and breathing out, deep and slow, feeling your body relax with each sound of this bell. Letting the thoughts of the past or the concerns about the future just melt away, and breathing in and breathing out, returning with each breath, consciously returning with each breath to the present moment. And as you breathe, feeling the life force energy of Mother Earth entering you with each breath. Connecting you with all of life, all around the whole planet. And sensing the ground beneath you, holding you, offering stability and calm abiding within the web of life. And with the next breath, you can draw up through your own roots to receive that nourishment from Gaia, which she gives so generously to us. And enter just for a moment into communion with the stabilizing and nourishing energies of Mother Earth. And as the blessing of this connection enters into you and you feel connected to her and to all of life, all around the whole planet, let's just breathe that in to our deepest heart of hearts. And breathing out, send this feeling of connection and caring to everyone who is present in this moment for this beautiful conversation and call, or listening to the recording. And send this love out to each and every one, and receive, as you breathe in, receive this love that is being sent, that connects us to each other all around the whole planet and connects us to the whole earth intimately. Breathing in and breathing out like the ebb and the flow of the tides. With each breath, we can also imagine gradually expanding our focus to include all of our friends and family, our whole community, our home, our neighborhood, our whole region, country, continent, embracing the whole planet with our love. And then just for a moment, turning our awareness to the places where there is suffering, the places where there is war, poverty, disease, pollution, droughts or floods or fires, or anywhere there is a need for healing in the world. And breathe this in, feel it. And on the out breath, send your love and your caring to relieve the suffering of the earth, of all of her people, animals, plants, and places that are in need of healing and protection in the past and in the present and in the future. And imagine this incredible web of light all around the planet, holding her. And each node of this web, where there is a little holy vessel, a little earth treasure vase planted in the body of Mother Earth, that we imagine that from our hearts and from the holy vessel itself, light is radiating, carrying our deepest intentions for healing and protection and renewal all around the planet, to relieve that suffering, to bring healing, restoration, balance, and harmony and peace in the world. And just for another moment, imagine this light radiating out in every direction, going where it's needed, in whatever form it's needed. and activating the earth treasure vases in this global healing mandala, keeping alive all those prayers and intentions and connecting us to all of those places as the holy vessels that we ourselves are, with this capacity to engage with what is called for in the world today, collectively. And imagine now that the healing is accomplished and the vitality of the earth is completely restored. What does that look like to you? What does that feel like? And without thinking, just allow yourself to drop into the experience of what that is now. And to form the intention that each of you, each of us, will feed the spirit of what is called for in the world today. Feed the spirit of what we want to see with our intentions, with our love and our caring and our actions. And with the next deep, slow in-breath and deep, slow out-breath, let's imagine that all of our prayers will be realized, and give thanks for this precious life we've been given to participate in this great work of global healing and collective awakening.
Oh, that was absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Cynthia, for leading us in that, and just a beautiful way to end, holding our vision for the future. Thank you again for just everything you have done over this time and everything you are bringing forth. It's really been an honour to speak to you today, and I hope everyone else has enjoyed this conversation as much as I have, and that they go and learn more about you, and hopefully join us for future meditations to pour our love into the earth.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a real joy to connect. And I just wish all of you all the best. And hope to see you soon on one of our calls or practices. Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to the Nurtured by Nature podcast. I truly hope this conversation has brought some hope and inspiration into your life. I would love to have these messages ripple out across the world. So if you can, please share this episode with your friends, leave a review on your favourite podcast player, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. I would love to hear from you, so please feel free to connect with me on the links provided in the podcast description. But most importantly, thank you so much for being a part of this journey with me. But don't forget to simply get out there and enjoy the natural world.